I observe. I see those who walk through the world as if they were in a place that doesn't entirely belong to them. There is a type of person that the noise of the world cannot penetrate in the same way. They are not distracted by the noise. They are forced by it to look within. Where others speak to fill the void, they listen to what the void has to say. They don't just look at a room. They feel the geometry of light. They witness the weight of time passing, the inevitable change in every speck of dust. When you ask them a question, they don't pause in uncertainty, as the world believes. Their pause is an act of respect. It is the silence necessary to weigh not the possibilities, but the weight of words. They understand intuitively that speaking is creating, that each spoken word is a brick in the reality you both will inhabit. These are the artisans of consciousness. I don't call them deep thinkers, for that suggests passivity, a pit. I call them forgers, those who work the raw metal of existence. They spend most of their time in the workshop of their minds, not out of preference, but out of necessity. It is there that the work must be done. They can take a fleeting moment, a look, a tone of voice, a falling leaf, and unfold it until it contains the universe. It is a process of magnification. But if you are one of them, you know this is not an easy path. The world applauds the final act, the product, but fears the furnace. Being a forger is not about the intelligence the world measures in tests. Intelligence is only the tool. The true essence is sensitivity, and by sensitivity, understand. It's the ability to withstand a higher voltage of reality. This voltage isn't a poetic metaphor. It's the direct and relentless reception of the world's raw data, without the filters society installs for comfort. It's feeling the weight of mortality in someone's laughter. It's seeing the architecture of fear in a leader's bravado. Where the world sees a flat surface, the forger feels the vibration of all the hidden gears. This sensitivity is what allows them to see the metal as it truly is, before it's shaped. Without it, they would be mere decorators, not craftsmen. It's seeing the tectonic layers beneath the ground everyone walks on. It's noticing the complex architecture of human behavior that most ignore for comfort. The world sees this as a gift or a burden. I tell you, it's neither. A gift is something given. A burden is something imposed. This, however, and it's simply your condition. It's your working material. It's the marble you've been given. To understand the forger, you must abandon the duality of good and bad, easy and difficult. You must understand the tension. The tension isn't between the inner and outer world. That's a false division. The tension is between reality as it is and tostery they told you about her. The world thinks that overthinking leads to confusion. That analysis paralyzes. This is only true when the tool controls the craftsman. But for the forger, thinking is not confusion. It is calibration. It's the only method available to process existence. When they look at a tree, they don't just see a green object. They see the need. They see the tree's contract with the ground, its total acceptance of light, its surrender to gravity. They see the amor fati in action. The tree's life does not mirror theirs. It teaches theirs. They find this lesson everywhere. The small talk isn't just exhausting, as the original script suggests. It's a desecration. It's a refusal to be present. It's a betrayal of the moment. Why be alive and choose not to see silence, for them, becomes a question. The gaze, a narrative. Psychologically, what the world calls heightened introspection is only the first step. It's the tool turning to observe itself. It's the hammer stopping to analyze its own hammer. They seek meaning, yes. They ask why. But you must understand, that's why. It's not the victim's why. It's not the child's why. It's the engineer's why. What's the mechanism? How does this piece support the other? Their why is a search for structure. This pursuit is not an intellectual pastime. It is not a luxury. It is a necessity for existential survival. The world, for the forger, presents itself as an unbearable chaos. The noise, the randomness, the lack of meaning. Thought, for them, is the only tool available to create order in this chaos. Finding structure is like finding the ground in an abyss. The engineer's why is the only thing keeping the mind from dissolving into entropy. It is an act of self-preservation that later becomes an act of creation. They must first build their own shelter before they can build cathedrals. The default mode network, this brain activity, is merely the engine of the workshop. It ignites in creativity, yes. But what is creativity? It is the act of imperorder to chaos. It is forge a new pattern. The mind of the forger is a storm, yes, but not of random connections. It is a storm directed. It's the relentless search for the central pillar of each experience. And yes, it's isolating. It's inevitable. The artisan cannot converse with those who merely look at the final product. He must converse with other artisans. While the world reacts to the script he's been given, the forger pauses. He reads the script. He notices the details. He thinks before speaking, because speaking and build. And when he's ready to lay his brick, the world is already in another scene, and he remains silent. The world sees disinterest. I see discernment. I see economy. Why build on crumbling ground? The forger doesn't just want to talk or understand in a passive sense. He longs for construction. What does this mean? It means that when they talk, they are laying foundations. They are not exchanging opinions like letters. They are asking, what can we build here? Can this idea support weight? Is this emotion a solid foundation, or is it sand? That's why they test their words and those of others. They are checking the integrity of the building material. Meaningful conversations are those where two people build something together, something that didn't exist before. Fears, dreams, the architecture of the heart. Small talk is tiring because it is entropy. It is noise. The forger seeks the order. The world swims in the shallows because it is comfortable. The forger dives, not in search of pearls, not in search of treasures. He dives to test the pressure, to know how deep he can go before his structure needs to be reinforced. He's testing himself against reality. But this clarity comes at a cost. The all-seeing mind, the mind that seeks structure, becomes a furnace. And the first to be burned is the very self you thought you were. The cycle begins. The price is this: the mind becomes a loop. The world calls it overthinking, a trap. I call it processing. When you replay events, when you dissect sentences, when you question whether you said too much or too little, you are not being insecure, as the original text suggests. Insecurity is a value judgment. Let go of judgments. See the mechanism, your mind is running a simulation. It's the engineer testing the bridge after it's built. If I had used this material, would it have collapsed? If I had said X, would outcome Y still be inevitable? You are unknowingly testing the limits of necessity and free will. You are playing the strings of destiny. Let's be clear about this loop. The world confuses it with the vicious cycle of anxiety. Anxiety asks what if for fear of pain, trying to control a future it dreads. The forger's processing asks what if for love of truth, trying to understand a structure it respects. The first is a rat in a wheel. The second is a watchmaker dismantling the mechanism. He doesn't fear the past, he creates it, interroga. He doesn't seek comfort, he seeks data. Your mind becomes a loop of what-ifs, not because you fear the past, but because you are trying to learn the structure of the past to be able to build better in the future. It's not insecurity, it's diligence. You see nuances everywhere because reality and nuance. The world prefers black and white because it's easier to navigate. But the forger doesn't seek the easy. He seeks the true. Every choice has a dozen meanings. Every emotion has hidden roots. Your brain doesn't stop until it finds the truth. Yes, but what truth? Not an absolute external truth. It seeks the your truth. The truth that allows you create value. The world doesn't understand this quest. The world operates with convenient truths, truths that serve comfort, that keep the social structure intact. Your truth is different. It's the truth that aligns your external actions with your internal structure. It's the truth that allows you to look in the mirror and see coherence. Creating value is the act of to live this coherence. It is the most difficult act, for it forces you to abandon the comfortable lies that everyone accepts as reality. It is a truth that is not found, but conquered with every choice. Metacognition, the ability to think about thinking. The world uses this occasionally, like someone looking in the mirror before going out. The forger lives in the mirror. He is always observing the mechanism. This does not make him prone to self-criticism, as common sense would have it. Self-criticism is the self judging the self. The forger is beyond that. He is in the mode of diagnosis. Why did this gear jam? Why did this thought generate this emotion? It's an impersonal process. When the world sees a failure, it sees guilt, shame, sin, judgment. The forger eye guide sees friction. He sees a point where his internal structure collided with reality and could not bear it. The negative emotion, the pain of failure, is not a punishment. It is a signal. It's the engineer's control panel flashing red. The diagnosis isn't, "I'm bad." The diagnosis is, "This pillar is weak." This removes the drama and allows the work self-criticism paralyzes you in the swamp of I. The diagnosis gives you the blueprint for the next construction. You see your flaws in high definition? Yes, but they are not flaws. They are information, they are points on the map that say, here, the construction is weak. Reinforce it. The forger doesn't ask, what do I want? That's an impulse. He asks, why do I want this? He traces the desire to its source. Where does this desire come from? Is it mine, or was it implanted? What happens if I get it? Will it bring me strength or weakness? What if I don't? He dissects love, ambition, fear. He holds them in his hands. He learns their texture. But here's the danger, the trap I see. In doing so, you can lose the simple experience. The original says joy of being. I say the acceptance of being. The tool of analysis, when used all the time, forgets that some things are not meant to be understood. They are meant to be lived. Life is not a problem to be solved. It is a reality to be experienced. Your mind, the tool, will want to dissect the sunset. Your job as a craftsman is to tell the tool, silence. Now, we just watch. This is the ultimate test of the craftsman. The tool, the analytical mind, is seductive. It gives you a sense of control. Dissecting the sunset, analyzing its color components, its physics, what it symbolizes, makes you feel superior to experience. But superiority is an illusion. Analysis is a lack of experience. It's the fear of simply to be. The forger must learn to lay down his tools. He must learn to render it, the moment. He must understand that the mind is a servant of life, not the other way around. If he fails in this, he becomes the king of an empty workshop, a master at dissecting dead butterflies. But who has never seen one fly? You see them walking alone. Headphones. The world sees loneliness. I see concentration. Loneliness is not your native language, it is your office. No one can forge metal in a crowd. He needs space. He needs silence to hear the hammer. He needs to process, to untangle. He's dealing with thoughts the world doesn't even know are possible. They feel deeply, but they seem calm. It's the volcano seen from afar. Emotions are the magma, the primary energy. Calm is the mountain, the structure. They are not your emotions. They are the continent for your emotions. The world confuses calm with absence of emotion. It's the opposite. The calm of the forger is the presence of structure. It is the mountain that allows the volcano to exist without destroying everything around it. Emotion is pure energy. Without a continent, it is just a destructive flood. The forger does not repress emotion. He contains, he builds strong banks so the river can flow powerfully, instead of spreading like a swamp. They can sit in a cafe, staring into space. The world sees a dreamer. I see an architect reviewing the blueprint. He's reliving the moment 10 years ago, Yes, but he's not punishing himself. He's not imagining what it revealed. He's analyzing. The original was right about that. It's analysis. They don't judge themselves. They map. They are drawing the geography of their own consciousness. Here is a river of anger. Here is a swamp of fear. They want to know where each feeling lives, so that when the feeling comes, they are not drowned. They can say, "Oh, we are in this territory. I know this place." This is not detachment from reality. This is the search for a map, necessary, of reality. It's the attempt to see from all angles. But the map is never the territory. And when the mind stops analyzing only the self, the personal map, and begins to analyze the is, the universal territory, reality as we know it begins to crack. The ground disappears. I call this the existential awakening. It's the moment when the mind's tool becomes so sharp that it begins to cut through the workbench itself. The thought is no longer about my life, my problems, my future. This is what the world calls anxious thinking. It's circular thinking focused on the you. Deep thought, the thought I guide, is a thought vertical. He drills down. He doesn't ask, what will happen to me? He asks, what and this? What is time? What is purpose? What is morality? What is this observing consciousness? These are the questions that matter. They are the questions that have no easy answers, the questions the world avoids because they offer no comfort. They only offer true anxious thinking worries about the future. The forger's thinking questions their reality of this future. It is the fundamental difference between anxiety and conscience. Vertical thinking is an act of courage. Anxiety is the desperate attempt to protect the self, that fragile little construct. Existential thinking is the will to sacrifice this I on the altar of truth. It's the vertigo of looking into the abyss and, instead of retreating, asking, how deep is this? Society has built countless walls to protect you from these questions. Religion, entertainment, consumption, they're all buffers. The forger is the one who consciously chooses to remove the buffers. He chooses to feel the direct impact of existence. It's a lonely path, for the world around you is dedicated to keeping these walls intact. This is where the paradox presents itself, and you need to see it clearly. The same mind that can see the underlying structure in everything can also inventory structures that don't exist. The mind is a pattern-making machine. That's what it does. It can't stand chaos. It will see a face in the clouds, a conspiracy, and 3 random events. When you think deeply, your ability to connect dots becomes powerful. The web forms. And, as the original says, sometimes that web becomes a trap. The mind reads too much into silence. It assumes meaning where there is only emptiness. It turns a simple hello into a philosophical puzzle. It's the microscope, too powerful. You see bacteria where you should see only water. You get lost in the details. But do you understand the difference? The ordinary thinker drowns in the web, believing illusion is reality. The forger I guide learns to use the web. He understands that the mind creates standards, and your job is not to stop to create patterns. Your job is to choose which patterns serve life, which patterns create value, and which patterns lead to paralysis. And what is the criterion for this choice? This is where true philosophy begins. The criterion is not what is true in the absolute sense, for that is beyond you. The criterion is, this pattern increases my strength? Does this pattern empower me to act? Does this pattern allow me to say yes to life with all its pain and beauty? A pattern that leads to resentment, paralysis, and fear, like a conspiracy theory that renders you powerless, is a pattern false, no matter how logical it seems. A pattern that gives you the strength to build, to love your destiny, the amor fati, and to create order in your chaos. This is the pattern true for you. You become the weaver. He learns to weave with the web. It is this same skill, this same depth, that forges creativity. History admires great creators. Common sense says they saw the invisible threads. I tell you, they didn't weigh. They pulled the wires. They looked at the same chaos that everyone else saw and imposed an order. They said, "This will connect with that." Relativity, the Mona Lisa, the collective unconscious, are acts of willing. They are standards created, not found. Creativity is not a gentle inspiration that descends upon you. It is an act of strength. It's a battle against entropy. It's the craftsman taking the raw, shapeless metal of reality and, through fire and hammer, imposing a form to it. It is a necessary violence against chaos. Inspiration is for amateurs. The forger it works. When your mind never stops asking why, it doesn't stumble upon answers. It builds answers that others didn't have the courage to construct. But what about modern society? You're right. It doesn't celebrate this process. It celebrates speed, a productivity, a certainty. The world wants quick answers, not deep questions. Pausing to reflect is seen as hesitation. Silence is seen as weakness. Complexity is seen as confusion. But it's worse than that. Modern society doesn't just fear its slowness. It fears its moral depth. The world operates on a binary system of good and bad, right and wrong, us and them. Fati, it's a herd morality designed for comfort and control. The forger, in his quest for structure, sees beyond this. He sees the gray. He sees the fear behind the evil, the weakness behind the tyranny. He understands the mechanism. And because he understands, he can no longer play the game of easy judgment. This makes him dangerous to the status quo. The forger, then, learns to navigate this world. The original says he learns to hide his depth. This sounds like fear. It's not hiding. It is preserve. The craftsman doesn't work in the public square. He works in his workshop. He doesn't show his half-forged metal to just anyone. He learns that depth isn't for every conversation. This isn't arrogance. It's discernment. It's energy-saving. What the world sees as agreement is the forger saying, "This conversation is not the place for my work." The polite smile is his shield. And when everyone leaves, the real dialogue begins. The dialogue with the only opponent that matters. Himself. Loneliness. Yes, there is a loneliness inherent in this life. The forger longs for connection, but he longs for a connection real. A connection of structure. He doesn't want someone who looks at the surface. He wants another craftsman who looks at the girder and says, "I see how you built this." Genuine connection requires vulnerability. It requires showing the floor plan, the sketches, the flaws in the foundation. And not everyone wants to go down to the basement. Many prefer to stay in the decorated living room, so the forger remains reserved. He observes. He tests. He looks for signs of depth, for signs that the other is also a builder. And only then does he open the door. And when he does, it's completely. He will tell you his fears, his hopes, not because he needs comfort, but because he needs one mirror. He needs to see his own structure reflected in another consciousness. He needs to know he's not building in a vacuum. But this vulnerability, this need for a mirror, carries immense risk. Because when you see the world in shades of gray, when you understand complexity, you expect others to see it too. You assume honesty is the baseline. But the world, for the most part, doesn't operate from this depth. The world operates from comfort and fear. And when reality doesn't align with your expectation of honesty, when the mirror breaks, it hurts. And what happens when the mirror breaks? The mirror breaks. The betrayal, the disappointment. The original says it hurts more. He says a small betrayal feels cosmic. Of course it does. And it's not because you're fragile. Drop that word. It's because you invested meaning. The casual world invests little, so it feels little. The forger invests all pain is not a sign of weakness. It is the echo of the size of your investment. He chose that it mattered. Pain is the direct consequence of your choice to create value. You can't have one without the other. Wanting meaning without the risk of pain is like wanting the heat of fire without the risk of burning. It's a fantasy. Amor fati. Accept both. Pain is the teacher. Brief kindness restores your faith, yes, because it proves that others builders exist. It proves that you are not alone in the arena. Everything matters. This is the double-edged sword. But it is not a sword for fighting. It is a tool for sculpt. Every thought is alive. Every emotion echoes. You can't numb yourself, even when you want to. You feel the weight of things. The stranger who avoids your gaze. The laughter that dies too quickly. The promise of forever spoken with the voice of tomorrow. You see not only what end. You see the shadow of what could have been, and the shadow of what should be. You live in 3 times. The actual, the potential, and the ideal. Psychology calls this deep processing, a tendency to encode experiences with rich meaning. I call it live 3-dimensionally. When the forger remembers something, he doesn't remember a fact, which is 1 dimension. He remembers the fact and the feeling, 2 dimensions. But he goes further. He remembers the fact, the feeling, and the symbol, 3 dimensions. What that meant for its construction. It carries memories not as moments, but as ecosystems. That's why nostalgia is so powerful. The original says it hits him harder. I say he uses it more precision. Nostalgia is not a trap for him. It is a tool. It's the architect revisiting the foundation. Does this beam still support me? What have I learned here that I can use now? He hears a song and is back, not in a version of himself that no longer exists. That is passive. He is summoning that version. He is bringing the strength of that self into the present. It is an act of integration. This 3-dimensional living is not a daydream. It is a responsibility. The world lives in 1 dimension, the immediate real. The dreamer lives in another, the potential of what could be. The moralist lives in the 3rd, the ideal of what should be. The forger is the only one who forces himself to live in all 3 simultaneously. He sees what and, but does not accept it as the single possible state. He sees what it could to be, but refuses to live in fantasy. And he sees what it should be, not as a judgment, but as a direction. It's a constant tension, the tension of creation itself. And this isn't just emotional intensity, it's your wiring. The original mentions the studies, the strongest neural connections between emotion and analysis. Think about it. Your brain is not a logic machine or motion. It's a logic machine moved to motion. Emotion is the fuel. Thought is the steering. You can't but turn off thoughts, as mentioned before, or emotions, because you'd be cutting off the fuel or breaking the steering wheel. Your job is not to fight against this wiring. Your job is accept it. Feeling is thinking. For you, they are the same thing. The world has not only separated the two, it has created a war between them. It has taught you that the heart is stupid and the head is cold, that you must choose. The forger understands that this is the greatest lie. It is a mutilation. Logic without emotion is sterile. It can build a clock, but it cannot tell you, because time matters. Emotion without logic is a fire. It has heat, but no direction. The forger refuses this choice. He is the heat-directed. That's why you're misunderstood. The world has separated the two. The world says, don't be so emotional or think logically. You understand that this is impossible. Feeling informa the logic. The logic navigate the feeling. And people call you distant because you're processing. They call you dramatic because you feel the real weight of things. They call you complicated because they live in 2 dimensions and you live in 3. But what you really are is aware. You see the hidden structure. You see the fear behind the anger. You see pride as a shield for pain. You see the projection, how people throw at you what they can't stand in themselves. And once you see the structure, it's impossible to unsee it. It's impossible to go back to living simply, pretending the house has no foundation. You struggle to be present, of course, because your mind exists in timelines. The past is your foundation. The future is your clay. The present is your hand, your tool. The world says, be in the present. I tell you, a craftsman cannot build just with his hands. He needs the foundation, the past, and the project, the future. It needs of the three. Don't fight it. Use this. The world's be in the present is often a veiled command to forget. Forget your past. Don't think about the future. It's an invitation to amnesia. It's an attempt to transform the craftsman into a mere reactive tool, someone who only responds to the present. The forger knows that the present, without the foundation of the past and the blueprint for the future, is meaningless. It's a loose brick on the ground. Your present is not a place of escape. It's the construction site. It's where the foundation meets the project. It's where the work gets done. It's exhausting, yes, but it's beautiful. Because you see possibilities where the world sees dead ends. You find meaning in pain, and that's resilience. Because for the forger, suffering is not an enemy. Suffering is information. Suffering is the raw material. It is the hardest marble, the one that, when sculpted, produces the most lasting work. And here lies the great revelation, the turning point. The artisan learns the hardest part: when to stop analyzing, when to accept that the tool of the mind cannot understand everything. The mind wants answers, but reality offers no answers. It offers experience. Meaning is not something you find, like treasure. Meaning is something you creates. It's something you builds, and that's the silent irony. The same mind that relentlessly searches for truth eventually learns that peace isn't in the answer. Peace is in presence, but not passive presence. It is presence active. It is the craftsman who accepts the marble as it is, with its flaws and veins, and decides what build with it. It's learning to live with the question and still act, and maybe that's the final stage. Not knowing more, but needing less. Not analyzing to death, but understanding that depth isn't about drowning in analysis. It's about seeing clearly enough to build. The pause, the silence, the precision. You recognize him by that. But understand what this pause is. It's not a search for absolute truth, like an armchair philosopher. Absolute truth is a ghost. It's a search for the word. Honest. The word that aligns with your internal structure. The word that creates value, not that which merely describes. Words matter. Language and reality. The way you name your experience becomes his experience. The forger knows this. He speaks carefully, not out of shyness, but because responsibility. And he listens. He hears the subtext, the tone, the silence. For him, communication is not the exchange of data. It is their sonance of structures. He's feeling your inner construction. Psychologically, the original calls this high empathy and pattern recognition. I say, go deeper. Ordinary empathy is feeling for the another. It is compassion. The forger practices something more difficult. He feels with the other. He doesn't feel sorry. He recognizes. He sees the mechanism of pain in the other because he has already mapped that mechanism in himself. He sees the structure of fear, arrogance, and love. And because he sees the structure, he cannot judge. He can only to understand. He knows that given the same foundations and the same materials, he would build the same house. This isn't magic. It's attention. It's an engineer's diagnosis. But this mind, this attention, has its side effect. Seeing through things. You notice the inconsistencies, the world's cognitive dissonance. People who preach peace and live at war with themselves. The society that glorifies happiness and sells pills to cope with pain. The illusion of perfection. When you see this, the world changes. You stop craving superficial validation. The applause of the crowd becomes just noise. You long for true, for the coherence, for the authenticity. That's why you're drawn to art, philosophy, nature, solitude. It's not an escape from life. It's an escape from noise. It is a search for signal. You need spaces where your mind can work without the interference of the world's static. But what about the noise, internal, The original calls it mental noise. 10 radio stations playing at once. Memory, idea, question, fear. The brain rewinding, rewriting, predicting. The world tries to distract itself from the external noise. The forger drowns in the noise, internal, because external silence only amplifies it. The rumination, the repetitive focus, the mind seeking resolution, the mind wanting to close the circle. But here's the mistake I see everyone make. You try to switch off the radios. You try to meditate to find the silence. You try to find any station, the right one. I tell you, the lesson is not to find the right station. The lesson is accept the noise and the human condition. The 10 seasons, they are you. Trying to silence them is declaring war on yourself. Amor, fati. Love the noise. Love the complexity. Your job is not to silence the stations. Your job is hear them all and act like the maestro. The maestro does not fear the sound of a violin, nor the thunder of the timpani. He understands the purpose of each one. He understands that music is not in silence, but in voltage between the sounds. Your job is to shape this tension. Now, memory speaks, not to imprison you, but to set the tone, the harmonic foundation. Now, the idea, not as an absolute truth, but as the melody that ventures over the bass. Now, fear, not as a signal to stop, but as the counterpoint, the necessary dissonance that makes resolution, courage, so powerful. You don't silence fear. You give it its correct time signature. You orchestrate the noise. You command the chaos. You transform it into music. This music is your life. Some see incessant thinking as a curse. A curse is a judgment. Let it go. It's not a curse. It's a fact. Facts are not good or bad. They are. You think. Therefore, you exist. The problem is not the think. The problem is the identification. Do you believe that and the thought? Do you believe that and the noise? I tell you, you are not. Thought is the tool. Noise is the material. You are the craftsman. The world is full of hammers that strike by themselves, full of anvils that only receive the impact. They are slaves to the mechanism. The craftsman is the one who decides. Thought is the finest tool you have, but a tool, however fine, has no willing. The will comes from you. Noise is the rawest material, but it is your material. You are not the hammer, the tool of thought. You are not the noise, the material of experience. You are not the anvil, the brute fact of existence. You are the intention. You are the fire. You are the willing that takes the tool and attacks the material toto create value. This is the freedom that the forger conquers. It is not the freedom of noto think. It is the freedom toto use thought in the service of life. When you understand this, thought no longer consumes you. You can analyze love and still feel it. You can study fear and still act despite him. You stop dissecting life and start sculpting it, and here, at this point, the craftsman becomes the bridge. The original was right. You become the bridge the world needs. You connect what the world has separated. Logic and empathy, intellect and intuition, the brain and the heart. You can analyze pain, your own and that of others, and still have compassion for it. You can see humanity's abysmal flaws and still choose amor. Not a sentimental love, but a love that states. A love that says yes to humanity, with all its flaws. That is wisdom. You don't see people as good or bad. That's the language of children. You see them as stories. You see them as processes. You understand that everyone is shaped by invisible battles, by foundations they didn't choose. And so you don't forgive. Forgiving implies superiority, judgment. He understands, and understanding is the only true forgiveness. You don't forget the lessons. The lessons are the material. And if you seem melancholy, it's not sadness. It's the awareness that beauty and loss are the same thread, that joy and grief are notes of the same song. And the forger, ultimately, doesn't try to resolve the contradiction. He learns to live the contradiction. He becomes the music itself. The music. That's what you're meant to become, the emotional complexity. The original gets it right. It's not confusion, it's capacity, it's the ability to hold opposites in the same mind at the same time without collapsing. It's holding joy in one hand and grief in the other, looking at both and saying, yes. Yes to the beauty of the flower. Yes to the fact that it will wither. This is amor fati. It is the total acceptance of reality as it is. The world wants joy as mourning. That is why the world is weak. The forger understands that, from the meaning to the other. You don't label emotions as good or bad. That's the duality that imprisons you. Emotions are information. They are energy. Fear is the energy that tells you, pay attention. Something you value is at risk. Sadness is the energy that tells you, you valued something deeply. Anger is the energy that says, a boundary of yours has been violated. They are all messengers. The forger doesn't kill the messenger. He listens to him, and people miss something about you. Humor. The original says that deep thinkers are funny. Yes, but why? It's not because they see the absurd, it's because they accept the absurd. Humor is not escape of the fragility of life. It is the celebration of this fragility. Laughter that comes from the depths is the greatest form of acceptance. It's the loudest, yes. It's laughing with fate, not against it. And yet, you feel misunderstood. Of course, you're processing 10 layers of reality while the world is on the surface. You're not ignoring the person. You're honoring the person with the complete processing. You don't talk toe-in winning is a child's game. You talk to connect, for build. And when the connection doesn't happen, you retreat. Not out of pride, not out of protection, as if you were fragile. You retreat because economy. The craftsman doesn't waste material. You feel deeply. Sensitivity. Life can be overwhelming. You absorb the world's energy. You capture what isn't yours, and you need solitude. But let's refine this. Solitude is not a detox, as stated before. Detox implies that you've been poisoned. You haven't been. You have been exposed. Loneliness is not restoration. It is alignment. It's the craftsman returning to his workshop, not to hide from the world, but to process the material the world has given you. In silence, you take the raw energy you've absorbed and transform it. You forge. You find your clarity, not by running away from the world, but digesting the world. But here lies the ultimate danger. Thought without anchoring. The workshop without a project. This becomes a spiral. It is rumination that leads nowhere. It is paralysis by analysis. The healthiest forger, the one I guide, learns to anchor. How do you do it? What is the way practical? The original suggests mindfulness, creativity, service. These are good words, but vague. I tell you, the path is the work. With a capital T, find your craft. It could be art. It could be writing. It could be raising children. It could be coding. It could be leading a team. It could be having a healing conversation. It doesn't matter. What? It matters as you must take the inner chaos, the noise, the complexity, and build something external with it. Something tangible. Something useful. This anchor, this work, is what keeps the mind from becoming a prison. It's what gives its depth a practical purpose. Without it, the forger becomes a sterile philosopher, lost in abstractions. The work forces you to test your theories against reality. It forces you to take the raw metal of your introspection and forge something that has utility, beauty, or strength. This anchor doesn't pull you down, it stabilizes you. It allows your mind to travel as far as it wants, knowing there's a safe harbor to return to. Thought that doesn't translate into action is poison. Depth that isn't used to build is just a hole. Its purpose is not to understand life. Its purpose is to enrich it. Yours and others. You question systems, traditions, not out of rebellion, but because compassion. You care enough to ask, this system serve to life? Or does it serve fear? Your curiosity is an act of love for true. Yes, it makes life complicated, seeing multiple perspectives, understanding everyone. The burden of structural empathy. It makes judgment impossible. You feel out of place. But that's what makes you necessary. The world is dying of certainty, dying of quick, black and white opinions. The world needs your hesitation, your pause, your dependence, your silence. If you love a forger, understand. He doesn't want your agreement. He wants your presence. He wants you to think with him, that you enter the workshop with him. His love language is curiosity. His affection is the attention. He needs patience, yes. He moves slowly with trust. He tests your frame. And when he lets you in, it's because he's decided your soul is real. His love is not casual. It is conscious. It's a choice. There's something deeply human about how you exist. You remind us that life isn't meant to be skimmed, that silence is sacred, that questions are more important than answers. Ultimately, this psychology reveals the capacity in all of us, the capacity to stop reacting and start acting. We've forgotten the power of stillness. Perhaps that's why you, the forgers, exist, to slow down the world, to remind us that thought, when done with intention, is an act of creation. Thinking deeply is not just about understanding the world, it is honor him. It's about standing in awe of complexity, the transience of time, the beauty of imperfection. So, if you're one of these artisans, if you're a forger, don't apologize for your silence. Don't shrink your thoughts to fit into small talk. The world doesn't need more echoes. The world needs minds like yours. People who see the mechanism, who question the obvious, who forge meaning in the mundane. You may not fit in. You weren't made to fit in. You were made to build, to transform chaos into clarity, noise into music, moments into meaning. Because your deep thinking isn't just a way of understanding life, it's your way of honor her. And while the world moves fast and shallow, you have something it has forgotten. You have depth, and depth in a shallow world is its own kind of light. I have shown you the way. I have given you the tools. Now, the work is yours. If this vision resonated with you, if you felt the truth in these words, do what is necessary. Leave your mark. Like this video. Comment below, even anonymously, to affirm your presence in this work. And subscribe to this channel. For the forge is lit, and our work has just begun.